Hi, and welcome to this training video brought to you by Category Management Knowledge Group. This week's tip has been created by Category Management Knowledge Group to teach you a few ways to become more strategic at the shelf. If you're in sales, marketing, or category management, you probably work with your space management team in your organization to create planograms behind new product launches. But it's important for you to understand that planograms aren't just pretty pictures that are kind of the last thought in the end of a new product innovation process. And you can become much more strategic at the shelf by better understanding the requirements behind building a planogram and some space management principles. In case you don't know about Category Management Knowledge Group, let me tell you a few things. I'm Sue Nicholls, the president and founder of CMKG. I spent 20 years at P&G, ultimately managing the Canadian category management team and serving on global Catman committees. Michelle Patterson is the director of training and development and also started her career with 12 years at P&G, both in category management as well as sales, trade marketing, and 10 years as a corporate trainer. The biggest distinction between CMKG and our e-learning competition is that we're category management professionals first and an e-learning company second. We have a huge passion in what we do and feel privileged to work with so many category management professionals. We offer accredited courses and programs that all relate to category management for individuals, teams, and organizations, including a retailer stream, with many options and flexibility to create custom blended learning solutions. Our training is applicable to different functions and experience levels in retail and manufacturing organizations, both in North America and globally. So let's get started on the official part of the training. The consumer packaged goods industry invests billions of dollars every year in effective sales, marketing, and supply chain support for retail. These investments focus primarily on things you see here, like consumer advertising, marketing new products, distribution, data systems and technology, market research, and so on. But it's space management that's most important, because it determines how all of these other investments come together at the shelf, where shoppers meet products face to face, and most importantly, where purchase decisions are made. Visual merchandising is regaining importance, especially within category management and shopper-centric merchandising models, in order to acquire effective product positioning. But it's not just the space management team that should understand merchandising. Sales and marketing also need to understand space management from a conceptual and a very strategic perspective, particularly if they're making the request for planograms from their space management team. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Here's the 5 things we're going to cover in this tip on space management for more strategic planograms. 1. Consider the type of planograms that need to be created. 2. Understand the detailed requirements to create a planogram that works for the retailer. 3. Add in data to planograms to bring them to life. 4. Look for planogram improvements that will help the retailer and consumer. And 5. Use planograms to more strategically understand the total category and the strengths and weaknesses of different brands and segments. So let's go through each of these in detail, starting with considering the type of planograms that need to be created. When you first request for planograms to be developed, what type of planogram are you hoping to get created? Or did you know that there are different types of planograms and that they're intended for different purposes? For example, a display planogram is great for planning how the retailer is going to merchandise those very important display areas in the store, and to ensure compliance at store level. An image planogram is meant more for the pretty picture, possibly when selling in a shelving concept versus focusing on the specifics of the planogram. A schematic planogram is meant for the retail store, with easy-to-understand layouts of the planogram for ease of implementation. An analysis planogram is one that has performance metrics mapped onto it to assess the results. And there are also many different analytic reports available, which should always be reviewed and understood when planograms are developed. So keep in mind the different purposes for creating planograms. Let's look at an example. When your organization launches new products or when you want to sell in a new merchandising strategy, create a few different sizes of conceptual planograms for the initial sales presentations. You don't need to customize all of the planogram sets with the appropriate assortment and layouts until after you get the retailer's buy-in. By creating a few great sample planograms, you'll save time and still be able to show live examples of what the shelf will look like. Once the proposal has been approved, then you can complete the custom planograms after you get your retailer feedback even on which SKUs they're going to carry. This approach will save you many hours and resources that would be put against planograms that haven't even been approved yet. The next step is to understand the requirements to create a planogram that works for the retailer. First, the retailer's shelf strategies need to be understood. Different retailer strategies can directly affect the shelf layout and overall targets and objectives for a planogram. Next, the retailer's fixture dimensions, including section sizes, gondola measurements, and shelf measurements, need to be input. And lastly, product information needs to be included. Much detail is required at a product level to maximize the use of the planogram software, including product segmentation from the consumer decision tree, unit cost and sales data, live images, and product dimensions. In net, a planogram is only as good as the inputs. Up-to-date and accurate planograms contain detailed records of every single product, fixture, and position that's intended to be merchandised in every store. To give you more perspective on how much information is actually required to create a planogram, I'm going to walk you quickly through our shelving planogram requirement checklist that we provide as a workshop in our space management course. First, you need to determine what planograms are currently available for the retailer or for the category. Creating a planogram from the ground up or starting with a blank space can be a huge undertaking. Next, you need to understand the retailer's shelf configurations, which obviously change for each category because the section sizes change. And finally, you need to understand the retailer's shelving strategies, including their perspective on terms like lead-off position, brand blocking, consumer decision trees, and case packouts, to name a few. I want to emphasize the importance of adding product data into your planograms in the next tip. By adding in unit movement, unit price, and unit cost, your planogram will turn from a pretty picture into a highly analytic tool. Many different outputs will be available through those basic inputs. And if you look at these outputs, they're all measures that are very important to the retailer. When your planograms are infused with data, they become added value to retailers as well as to suppliers. Many organizations don't use the analytics side of planogramming because of the extra time required to include the data. But without these inputs, you can't take advantage of the multitude of other capabilities and functionality in the planograms. Once data has been put into a planogram, you should look for planogram improvements that will help the retailer in the total category. For some suppliers, the overall objective in the planogram is to determine how to fit all of their new items into the planogram without losing listings, instead of considering how the new items and how they're merchandised on the shelf are going to benefit the retailer and his category. When changes are made in planograms, there should be a review of how the recommended planogram changes are going to positively help the retailer increase turns, reduce inventory, reduce out of stocks, require less space, increase sales and profit, and or focus on their unique consumer. Otherwise, why would they implement the changes? And now for the last tip. Suppliers also have the opportunity to use planograms with unit movement and cost data in them to understand how their brands and items perform on the shelves relative to competition. By completing a SWOT analysis, you can easily identify the strengths and weaknesses of your brands and items, and then take actions to either capitalize on the strengths and fix some of the opportunities. You can also compare differences in your brand's performance across different clusters that focus on different target consumers and across different retailers. Finally, keep in mind that a small change in fixture dimensions, product dimensions, or product data can have implications on the hundreds of calculations that occur within a single planogram. At the same time, the dimensions and data must be kept fresh in the planograms over time so that these changes are reflected in the planograms. It's also important to remember that moving and adding shelves costs money for the retailer. If a planogram has more products to be added than there's space for, you may have to adjust current shelf heights, shelf depths, or even add another shelf to the planogram in order to create space. You need to think about the cost incurred by increased labor for having to move even just one shelf in every store across a chain. And for any additional shelf that needs to be added into the planogram, there's also an extra cost of, say, $20 per shelf, plus the complexity of getting the new shelf into every store. So try to keep things easy for the implementation when creating planograms, or they probably won't be approved by the retailer. So here are the 5 tips that I've covered in this video. Hopefully, you see the benefit of moving to more strategic planograms within your team or organization, and ensuring that anyone who makes requests for planograms or those who make recommendations that influence the shelf increase their understanding of space management. It's a benefit for suppliers both internally and externally. I've also created a digital space management glossary that gives you some sample terms as they relate to space management to help you further your space management understanding. Please go back to my blog page to learn how to download it. All of the examples I shared with you come from 2 of our accredited courses, Space Management and Leveraging Data for Advanced Shelving Solutions, both available online. Regardless of if you're looking for industry certification in category management, or if you just want to take some great training, our accreditation confirms that our training meets or exceeds industry standards. You can choose to take one course as a quick fix need for a project, select a group of courses to create a customized program specific for you, or you can take one of our many programs with different options available to you. We've combined courses to create different course groupings based on your role and what it is that you're trying to accomplish in your unique training program, whether you're in category management, sales, or marketing, if you're trying to attain industry certification, or if you're looking for a full site license approach to all of our courses. Of note, we can also customize programs for our corporate clients to include blended learning and customized elements in the program. If you're interested in learning more about CMKG courses and programs, here are some suggested next steps. If you enjoyed the video from this blog post, I encourage you to share it with your social media avenues using the buttons at the top of my blog page. Once again, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I encourage you to continue to venture down your path of continuous learning. Have a great day.